Welcome to the podcast, my boy G, Maxi.
Thanks for having me back. It's an awesome podcast, so I had to come back for a third time.
All right, so the last one had pointers. Now we're going to shoot this shit. Go.
We're going to shoot it. Where do we start? So, what do you want to talk about? Life? I like to talk about life.
One of the things I love about you, and I said this right when I say this every time I see you, is that you like talking about real stuff. Real stuff. I have a couple friends that are like that. Not many people are like that in general. Oh, we could talk about this. This is actually an interesting thing. You know, when people check in, hey, how you doing?
Right.
So we have Viggy. I tell Viggy, what do you want, the real answer or the I'm doing well, I'll be in New York next week, things are going well? Do you want that 10-second, that's what you're looking for? Or do you want how I'm really doing? Because that's going to be a 5 minute.
Do you want a check mark back, like I checked in and I checked back in? Or do you really want to know?
Do you want a 5-minute voice note to actually hear how I'm doing? So there's very few people, Viggy being one of them, who actually want to know how you're doing. With you, it's always real conversation. Real conversations. There's certain people you're having real conversation. You're not talking about, I don't want to say chazare sheveted, but you're not talking about stupid, meaningless crap, or they call them the goyish world, small talk. Right? You're not doing small talk for
nonsensical foolishness, man.
You could do it for like 20. It's one of my issues in social gatherings. Like I could do small talk for just like 1 or 2 minutes. Like
I feel like most of the times when I talk to somebody, I try to give them my full attention and be invested in the conversation. And the only thing that interests me in conversations is real
life stuff,
real truth, real. A lot of times it even takes away my time when I speak to somebody, and it gets to that point where it's like, yo, I gotta go to sleep because for my own personal life, I gotta be healthy, but I just can't because I have to finish that conversation because I opened my heart for somebody. And for myself, it's not like I open it for somebody, it's just who I am sometimes. And I get something in my head, yo, I have to check in with somebody. And I do it, and then it takes a long time. But nowadays I don't mind. When I do, I don't make the phone call. It's that simple.
It is important to mention that to be there for someone like that, because listening, receiving is a form of giving. And to be there for someone like that does require, you have to have it in you to be able to give then.
Right.
You have to have it within you. So sometimes when we're depleted ourselves, you can't give. And when you try to, it fucks
Was I wearing the same shirt the last time I was there?
The last podcast?
Yeah, I think so.
Weeks and weeks and weeks ago?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When I was in Israel?
Was it the same whiskey bottle? Yeah, so on that topic, so there are people who check in. So there are people who are, whatever. There are people in this world who like to talk about real things.
Right.
There are people who only do small talk. They only talk small with their friends and family. We're not one of those people. Like I said, I could do it for a minute or two, but for me, it's very exhausting to do small talk because it's not genuine to me.
Right.
I truly have no interest to do small talk. I don't want to talk about the weather and sports and whatever people talk about when they're doing that. So I could be like, hey, hi, how you doing? And then we're done. How you doing? And now we can talk about the real stuff.
Correct.
So I appreciate your presence.
So due to some of my nature when talking to people and trying to only search and seek out for the truth, sometimes it costs me my energy to be drained. Sometimes it causes my energy to be drained. Sometimes it causes me part of me. So for nowadays, I try not to take on, for the lack of a better term, new people, because I can't.
Right.
Nowadays I started taking on me, taking care of myself, give myself. Do I ever check in with myself? Let's start checking in. Also, I want to mention that I'm very blessed. God has been blessing me forever, but I've been looking at it and seeing it that way in the last few years, and I am truly blessed, and it's a pleasure living in this world now. Even the days that it's not, that is difficult and challenging, it's really a pleasure. I've been trying to follow a little bit of Kabbalistic ways and all that, and it truly helps me put everything in perspective, bringing up certainty rather than doubt. And it helped me tremendously in so many aspects in life.
Growing up's fun, huh?
Yeah.
Maturing's a lot of fun.
Correct.
Everything changes.
Funny thing is, like, I was kind of saying the same thing in a different form 10 years ago. I'm changing.
It's all
I'm growing up.
It's all with respect to, you know, it's a journey, obviously.
Yeah.
10 years ago, you were more mature than you were 15, but there is such a thing that you mature after your 25, 30s.
Correct.
There is something to that, and it's a big change. I think what we'll experience from now for another 10, 20 years might not be as big. It'll be gradual, but probably not as big. There is something that happens when you fully mature, and then the whole world feels
We'll
different.
find out. We'll find out.
Wrong. Might be wrong. We might be at 42 and 45 years old, be like, oh my God, now I see the light. You know? But
I see now a lot of times that some of the knowledge that I picked up, that sometimes my thoughts enter my mind. If I would have known that 10 years ago, you know how much better off I would have been? But no. If I didn't have 10 years ago, I wouldn't have this now. I needed to have that step.
Yeah. We see it clearly. With faith, you see it clearly. Everything that God put us through was a must. It wasn't even optional. Going back to what you said just before, there's a quote that says, you can't give what did I just write? You can't give what you don't have.
Right.
And that has to do with the energy depletion. If you don't have something, you can't give it. So
you could, but then you'd have nothing left for yourself.
Yeah. It turns into unrest and unhealth and all kinds of stuff. But if you're spiritually aware and you're aware of yourself, you know when you can and can't give. That's why you can't go into new relationships if you can't give. I have some friends who will listen, or they'll check in with me and they'll actually want the real updates. And we'll go back and forth for 30 minutes or 45 minutes. So we'll have those deep, hardcore, real conversations. Those conversations, even if they're completely positive and we're both reciprocating, to a certain degree, they pull energy, because you had to take what that person was telling you, had to give, and back and forth. And it fills us, and and then you leave it alone for a few weeks, sometimes a few months, before you'll have that type of exchange again, because of the energy that it took from both sides. So it's like you really check in, you really get to know how your friend's doing or a family member, and now you're good for a few weeks, because it's like, okay, you can't do this every day. Right. People who try to do this every day, also, it ends up resulting in all types of negative manifestations.
I was doing it here and there sometimes for, I don't want to say for people because it makes me sound interesting, but I was doing that on an often basis. The thing what I do now is what helps me most. I don't volunteer for it anymore, but processing it after. Taking that energy, because you have a certain amount of energy. It doesn't just take away some of your energy and gives you some of the bad energy. How do you get rid of it? You have to process it. Once you process it, it's gone. But you have to truly process it. It's a whole system. I tried different meditations and different stuff. I let it just come in and sit down. And you have to really be willing and open and flexible and 100% committed and believe and certain. If not, it's not going to work.
It's part of mindfulness. There are a lot of different meditations and practices that help you do that. But these are not just things that you learn. These are practices that you have to implement, and you get better. It's like exercising a muscle. You get better and better at them.
Correct.
And it's part of the Indian of really stopping and not reacting. So something hit you, whatever it is. Stopping and truly processing what just happened. Why do I feel the way that I feel? If I'm drained, why do I feel drained? How do I repair it? And as we sharpen that muscle, quote unquote, you get better and better at it. And you end up actually feeling like a healthier, more thought out, stable person.
And when you feel like a stable person and somebody dumps bad energy on you, you immediately feel a difference in your life. So you want to do something about it. You don't want to go down that road. Once you go down, it's over. So you want to do something about it. You want to process it and get rid of it. I actually had a small form of panic attack last week.
Mm-hmm.
But due to, I haven't had a panic attack in years. Thank God I'm blessed that it hadn't happened. But I was sitting in my car. I was driving back from upstate. And my heart started pounding. And it started going crazier. I started sweating and everything. And I looked at the clock and I told myself, I've been here before. I'm familiar with this. It's 11:48 p.m. I'm going to wait till 11:52 and then I'll think about it because I'm like bugging out and panicking. I let everything go. I was panicking. My body was doing whatever it was doing. I just looked at the clock. It took a little longer than 5 minutes, but it was over in about 11:53, 11:55. It was gone. By 12:05, didn't even exist. So we learn from our past if we really are mindful and we pay attention, we are aware, and we record things, document things, and we cross-reference. Our brain does it automatically if you allow it to.
If you exercise it.
Correct.
The focal point being the mindfulness, meaning what you're trying to say, I believe, is that in the past you would have dealt with the onslaught, quote unquote, of a panic attack differently.
Right.
But now you, with full control.
Correct.
You were mindful, you allowed it to do its thing, and you got over it much quicker, and then you processed it, meaning the entire panic experience.
Easier.
Yeah.
It was almost it was not a pleasure at all. But I'm saying compared to other times, I was not freaking out. My body was doing what it's doing, but I wasn't freaking out because I had a set time. In 5 minutes, if it's still ongoing like this, I'll start freaking out. Like I'll start trying to do something about it, but now not. The second reason why I brought it up is because I asked people, professionals, what do you think this is from? Should I share with you my day, my week? They told me, nah, can never know. It could have been triggered from something from that day, or it's from 20 years ago. Okay. So going back to the point, you're taking bad energy from people. If you don't process it, it will kick you in the ass. Yeah. And cutting it off and not talking to them, you'll stop gaining that bad energy from that certain person, but you still have to process whatever was until now, but you didn't learn how to deal with it. Learning how to deal with it allows you to continue life.
This reminds me of an episode that I recorded while I was in Thailand on my own. I was dealing with hardcore anxiety then, and I was illustrating about this cup. So everything that happens to us, same exact concept. Basically, everything affects us, and if you don't deal with it, it bottles up.
Right.
And that energy is going somewhere. So yeah, it's 100%. The panic attack thing is, I've only had 2, 3, maybe 4 pretty bad panic attacks in my life as well. One of them was also recently, probably about the same time that you had yours, just a few weeks ago. Very similar situation. The last time I had a panic attack before this time was maybe a year or 2 ago. The worst. It was almost like a mental breakdown for an hour or 2. I was almost running in the street naked. So I saw a whole insight into how the brain could snap. But it was a full-blown panic attack. I didn't run to the hospital. I just got through it. But that builds trauma, which is a whole separate thing. How those experiences build trauma, PTSD. Yeah. But they're traumatic, so they give you PTSD. So I'm deathly afraid of where my brain's going to go when I go into panic. And it happened just a few weeks ago. Same exact thing. Like, I literally said to my wife, "Here we go again." I collapsed down to the floor. My heart rate through the roof. My brain is going blank. I'm laying down on the floor flat. Heart's right. You feel like you're about to die. But same exact thing. Up here, I wasn't as afraid. I know I've gotten through it. I was more mindful during the experience. It lasted all of 2 minutes instead of 2 hours. And as soon as it was done, it was like, haha. It was like you felt that way for a second. It was like, that's what you mean by, like, it almost felt good. It was a horrible experience, right. But it felt good that it wasn't that horrible experience from last time that took an hour. And as soon as I got up, I'm like, okay. So if I learn to maybe stop fearing it as much, or if I get rid of the PTSD that's attached to it, and my body just wants to do its thing, you could get through so much quicker. Trust your body, knows what to do.
Correct.
And then it's like a joke. Seriously, this is what I'm afraid of. Maybe if I'm not afraid of it, it doesn't have to happen anymore. So I had the exact same paralleled experience. Really fascinating.
Even if you know that the PTSD is there and you're aware of it, you're already winning.
Yeah.
Because you know it's not real. I think it's all the mind. What makes you panic? Your body is actually panicking. Imagine you don't have a mind at that moment. How bad would it be? Wouldn't be bad at all. Yeah. It's like you have
I've gone very deep, so I think I've narrowed it down to it's related to fears and not letting go.
Right.
So it basically I cause it on myself, because if I would let go, it wouldn't happen. I refuse to let go, and my brain has to make changes sometimes, or shifts, has to feel a drop different, and I can't let it go. So my brain, I'm holding on, and my heart starts exploding, fight or flight. But it's complete hogwash. There's nothing to it. There's nothing there. If there was, scientists would already find it.
Right.
Yeah. There's another quote that I wanted to say when we recorded weeks ago, 20 minutes ago, our last episode. It was because it had something to do with what you were saying, but it's good to know across the board. I learned this from Rav Lazer Brody. It was written in one of his books. It's a simple calculation: expectations minus realization, or realizations plural. Expectations minus realizations equals frustration or anger. And once you understand that equation, you could understand pretty much all of your frustration and anger. Because if you don't expect something to be different than what it was, or the outcome of something was, you won't be angry, you won't be frustrated ever. But we do expect things. So it's always your frustration or anger is always somehow related to an expectation. So if you can learn to adjust your expectations or not have them in the first place, you don't get frustrated and angry. Very, very powerful, very, very powerful lesson. To what we were just talking about earlier, the more we study it, the more you could also reckon. We were talking about these things that we see in ourselves, but the more we work on like the mindfulness and all this stuff, the more you also recognize unhealth when it's coming from other people.
Right.
So you're not confused anymore. When somebody approaches you and you have this weird type of conversation, you're like, okay, I understand where that's coming from. Thank you.
Right.
It was nice to meet you. Gotta go.
Exactly.
You don't get caught up in these oddball situations because you see it so clearly, because you're essentially a master of it yourself.
Correct.
You're working on yourself all day. You know exactly what that behavior is.
And you're taking care of the number one priority.
You're getting into Kabbalah.
Yes. I'm getting into Kabbalah a little bit. I started following a couple of people online and taking their classes, seminars, workshops, and all that. And it's really impacting my life positively, like next level. Most of the things that I taught was negative is not negative at all. And we spoke about it earlier. It just makes room for what you're actually praying for. Praising God and praying for. If you were, for example, praying for a $250,000 car, I know it's materialistic, but it's an example, and you get into an accident with your $50,000 car and you go crazy, or not get into an accident, something happens that you had a contract with somebody, it gets taken away from you, this and that, you can go crazy. Go into whole anger, disappointment, upsetness, and just spiral out of control from there. What do you mean? I'm praying for this, now you're taking away this? Hold on. You want that? Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of that. Let's make room for what you are praying for. It goes around to everywhere. Friends, family, things, items, materialistic things, and anything you can apply it to.
What was the premise again? Negativity is not really what? Negative things. You said negative things are not really negative?
No, they're not.
So basically saying there's no such thing as negative thing, really.
They are negative. I'm saying when you're praying for stuff, you have to realize anything negative that happens to you is making room for what you're praying for.
It sounds very similar or exactly the same, but just explained differently as like kind of like the Amuna concept. Because if you have faith that everything's for your good, then even the quote unquote negative is really just good dressed up as negative to get you to move, to do X, Y, and Z, or to change something, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, it's the same concept. It just has a little different tone to it.
Modern.
Basically, you lose somebody. It doesn't introduce grief as much because it's not a loss, it's a gain. You're gaining something. You're preparing. Your soul is trying to be transcended with new people and better people. You have to break free from the people. So you can get stuck there. Damn, I'm losing people. Now you're stuck. You're not going to go not getting new people and not having what you had. Or you look at it that way, which I believe it is that way.
If you fall for the facade, if you fall for the lie, then you'll get caught up in the lie.
Yeah.
Then it'll become the reality.
Exactly. Because ultimately, what do you really want? You have a goal that you want something. This is my goal. This is my target. But all this can't stay in place.
I just thought of 2 more quotes.
Go for it.
I am a machine today with my quotes.
Hell yeah.
Rabbi Nachman says, you are where your mind is, so make sure your mind is where you want to be.
Right.
Okay? There's an even shorter version of that, which is, you can if you believe you can, or if you flip it around, you can't if you believe you can. So you're essentially saying, as soon as you give credence to the negative thought, you made that the reality. Okay, Taka, here's your reality.
Exactly. If something really negative happens, also, it's not, you deal with it, process it, let it go. But remember, this is what was standing in the way for your ultimate goal or target or the desire. Your desire is something. You can't just get it. Sometimes you can, but
That's really beautiful. I love how Kabbalah is impacting people's lives, even in the modern world and even in the non-Jewish world. There's a couple of things going on. First of all, a lot of people don't know this, but all of Hasidus is watered down Kabbalah. It's all rooted in Kabbalah. In fact, there was a lot of dissension. What's the word? Whatever. There was lots of fights and arguments in the Jewish world and history, in Jewish history, over this notion that the tzaddikim, the Hasidic masters, were bringing this stuff and making it so tangible and bringing it to light. In retrospect, we understand that it may have saved Judaism, literally. Hasidism is probably one of the greatest things that ever happened to Judaism, and it came at a pivotal time, blah, blah, blah. But the fact that they were just simply taking Kabbalah, bringing it down into modern terms, and now, since that energy was released into the world, it now became accessible to everyone. I'm starting to understand this concept that there's all kinds of different beliefs that we have in Hasidic outlook. Well, like Baal Shem Tov, he said he used to literally fly in other worlds. And there's a story that he goes and he sees Mashiach. And Mashiach, when you're coming, he asks, and Mashiach says, when your teachings are spread across the world, that's part of why Chabad does the outreach that they do. Right. There's this idea, the knowledge of God and all that has to spread to the corners of the world, blah, 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 before Mashiach comes. So that's why there's a lot of groups that literally work on that. That wasn't possible until now. And that's what's fascinating to me. It's only possible now because of technology. Think about it. It wasn't possible to spread knowledge of God, the way that we understand it, to the entire world until technology came along, until we were kids. It just came out 10, 20, 30 years ago, whatever, when it really started blowing up. And I believe what we're witnessing are the early stages of that. Guys like Y.Y. Jacobson's brother, I forgot his name, 400,000 followers on YouTube, half of which, or more than half, are not even Jews. Right. The amount of millions of people who are seeping and benefiting from Kabbalistic knowledge, Jewish knowledge, Hasidic knowledge of God, we're starting to see all those predictions and prophecies literally before our eyes through natural means, technology, politics, drama, blah, blah, blah. But it's happening. Truly fascinating.
The world is evolving. It's an open world.
And it's amazing that Kabbalah is changing the world.
Kabbalah was a secret. How can you keep a secret now? These days, you can't. Obviously, most people jump on all the negativity that's going on out there. Anywhere you can have it. Oh, somebody got stabbed in Vietnam yesterday in this street. Why do I need to know? What is going to benefit me? But they push that out. But the positivity is also there. You can tap into anything. It's so open. I feel like a lot of the souls that are coming now down the last 10 years, 20 years in the future are a different type of soul also. Ready to integrate to this new world that we live in. To correct and to correct is the right word. Maybe, I don't know. To evolve. The planet is constantly changing.
Yeah.
This is the next step.
Well, man, to me it's just everything, because this is what I live for. But I find it fascinating. Kabbalah changing the world on YouTube and on social media. But hey, we're just sitting and watching it happen. Absolutely fascinating. Well, thank you again. Timer's running out. Peace and love. Until next time.
Thank you.
Leave a like and subscribe. Subscribe.